Coming up, a career night for Luka Doncic and a wild trade deadline mixes everything up across the league. This is Locked On Now NBA.
The biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NBA, local experts with the biggest stories on the hardwood. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We got a ton of Locked On NBA hosts. They're here to break everything down from a wild trade deadline day and the action afterwards. We're going to start with a rematch of last year's NBA Finals in our biggest game.
The biggest game.
The defending champs struggled against the Suns, but injury woes could prove to be even more problematic for them long term. Locked On Bucks breaks down the loss and all they've got to deal with going forward.
What's up, everyone? Kane Pittman here from Locked On Bucks. Just seconds after Milwaukee have gone down to the Phoenix Suns in what was the first meeting between last year's NBA Finals teams. The Suns are awesome. That was confirmed. They won this game pretty comfortably. Milwaukee walk away at the end of this 4-game West Coast trip 3-1, which I think they would have taken at the start of this trip. But it has been a big day. Started with a trade. Serge Ibaka heading to Milwaukee, Donte DiVincenzo out. We speculated whether this was going to be the case at the start. And now, during this game against Phoenix, Pat Connaughton left during the third quarter. It has been reported that he now has a fracture of the fourth metacarpal. So this is an injury that can have varying timelines depending if surgery is required. So we will obviously find out more over the next couple of days. But when you do just trade away Donte DiVincenzo, when you do have George Hill on the sidelines battling this neck injury that we don't really know what the status is of that, it is a little bit of a concern when you look at the general rotation of the Bucks. Part of the trade with Serge Ibaka, they now do have a couple of open roster spots. Semi Ojeleye and Rodney Hood are also outgoing. They weren't playing much, but there might still be some moves to come for the Bucks in the coming days. So a big news day, plenty to discuss, and the Bucks rotation and where they stand is the main talking point as we now head towards the All-Star break. And then, of course, the road to the postseason. So we're going to break it all down on Locked On Bucks. Join us wherever you get your podcasts, or, of course, now on YouTube.
The Suns getting a bit of revenge with a blowout win over Milwaukee. Locked On Suns has more on the win.
A rematch of the NBA Finals here in Phoenix tonight, and the Suns avenge their finals loss, at least for one night, winning over the Bucks in pretty convincing fashion. Take a 20, 30 almost point lead in the third quarter and are able to take it home in the fourth. A few too many minutes for the Stars yet again, but able to keep Giannis in check, under 20 points with their new additions, Bismack Biyombo and JaVale McGee. The Suns finish off an impressive stretch against the East with 4 wins in 5 games. We'll see what comes next, but this was a massive checkpoint game. The Suns did not do a ton at the deadline. They did not want to rock the boat too much, and yet they are still every single night proving why they are among the absolute top of the NBA. For more on these Suns, listen to Locked On Suns wherever you get your podcasts.
A new face on the court for New Orleans as CJ McCollum donned a Pelicans uniform for the first time. Unfortunately, couldn't get his team a win over the Heat. Locked On Pelicans recaps the game and how their newest player is fitting in.
CJ McCollum made his debut for the Pelicans, but it ends with a loss to the Miami Heat. I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast and Locked On NBA. The Pels fall 112-97 against the Miami Heat, and you don't need to overthink this one. The Heat are a good team while the Pelicans are still fighting for the play-in tournament. Plus, they're trying to integrate an integral new player who'd been in town for less than 48 hours. So how did CJ do? 15 points on poor shooting, going just 2 of 10 from 3, so it's not the debut that New Orleans wanted. But you did see what they envisioned for him going forward. While never really being the primary ball handler in Portland alongside Damian Lillard, the Pels used CJ at point guard very often in this game, and he did finish with 5 assists on the night, looking pretty good in the pick and roll overall. It's going to take a little bit of time to integrate him, Brandon Ingram, and Jonas Valanciunas and get them all on the same page. But once they do, the Pelicans feel that a spot in the play-in tournament is absolutely theirs. So for more on the Pelicans and CJ McCollum, be sure to check out the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
A massive trade for the Mavericks earlier on Thursday was the precursor to a historic night in Dallas. Luka Doncic has a career high, and our Locked On Mavericks host was there to see it all go down.
The Dallas Mavericks get a win against the Clippers, and Luka Doncic drops 50 points, a new career high. Nick Engson from the Locked On Mavericks podcast here. And the day the Mavericks trade away Kristaps Porzingis, we were wondering how Luka Doncic was going to respond to this. Was he going to be okay with this? Was he going to say, man, I need some more help? Nah, he just stepped up and scored 51 points, a brand new career high for him. And there's something about playing this Clippers team that Luka Doncic just revels in. At the beginning of the game, Luka Doncic going one-on-one against Zubac, which a lot of switches. He was taking advantage of it, hit 7 threes in the first quarter, was just absolutely on fire. And then he just slowly inched his way, free throw by free throw, to get to that 51. An absolutely masterful performance from Luka Doncic in this game. He continues to prove to be one of the best players in the NBA, one of the best scorers in the NBA, one of the best young players we've ever seen in the NBA. And this game was another one that solidified it. We'll talk about that and more on tonight's Locked On Mavs.
A surprising road win for the Knicks helps to salvage a pretty terrible West Coast road trip up to this point. Locked On Knicks breaks down the huge upset over Golden State.
The Knicks, that's right, the New York Knicks, knocked off the Golden State Warriors 116-114 to get the monkey off their back to win their first game of a West Coast road trip that could best be described as miserable. It started off with a heartbreaking overtime loss to the Los Angeles Lakers, a game against the Utah Jazz where they fell despite a 24-2 third quarter run. And then they were just decimated Tuesday night in Denver. And to add to add injury to insult, I should say, RJ Barrett goes down the final minute of that game with a sprained ankle. Then the Knicks have a particularly unsuccessful trade deadline. They fail to move off of any of their veteran pieces. Obviously don't get any assets for them, don't open up any playing time for the younger guys on the roster that they wanted to get playing time for. And the Knicks respond with, not so arguably, their win of the year over Golden State. It was the fourth straight fantastic game for Julius Randle. 28 points, 16 boards as he continued to play with pace and ferocity that, until this West Coast swing, had been missing throughout the season. And he got a whole lot of help, 3 double-digit scorers off the bench. Cam Reddish, the name to know, his best game as a Knick. When there were rumors that he would get dealt after less than a month on the team, he responds with 12 points, smart decision-making throughout. The rookie Quentin Grimes had excellent defense while getting the start and hit a big 3 in the fourth quarter to help the Knicks separate. Evan Fournier hit big shot after big shot. It was the consummate team win for New York as they will continue their West Coast swing Saturday in Portland. Of all the coverage you could ever want on Locked On Knicks.
That's going to do it for us today on Locked On Now NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On NBA and your team's Locked On podcast. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.